appreciate it. Good getting to see everybody. I'm from Dallas, so it's a short drive down. Any other Texans? Let's go.
Oh.
Good. Shout out to my Texans. Yeah, so I'm the CRO of ClickUp. Any ClickUp users by any chance? All right, good shout. Yeah, come on. That's all I like to hear. So if you don't know ClickUp, Stevie and I, our faces are on these cards, but I've got a picture for us right here. If you want to come get a QR code, you can scan it, get a trial, get a discount. But we're this all-in-one productivity platform combining task management, docs, whiteboards, OKRs, chat, forms, a bunch of things all into one so you can scale your business in a single place. So I'm our chief revenue officer. I'm responsible for all of our revenue streams, which includes our sales team, our support teams, our success teams, our services teams, et cetera. And I've been there about 9 months. So I'll tell you a little bit about some of the journey here in a sec. But before that, I was at Zscaler, which is an enterprise web security company. And then before that, I was at App Dynamics for 7 years. So Stevie, over to you.
Thank you. Hey everybody, Stevie Case. I am the Chief Revenue Officer at Vanta. We are a trust management platform. We help our customers automate compliance and prove trust. So if you're trying to build a security program, a compliance program, we are the platform to help you do that, to get SOC 2 compliant, deal with FedRAMP, HIPAA, all of that fun stuff. I've been at Vanta for about 14 months. I own everything go-to-market at Vanta, so sales, customer success, and all of that, growth marketing as well. So excited to be here and talk a little bit of PLG and channels and all of that. Before Vanta, I spent 6 years at Twilio. So I was with Twilio on the run from 200 million to about 3.5 billion, and very heavy PLG motion there. And before that, I had a varied career doing communications platforms, payments, and originally video games.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, is that better? Okay. I was nervous about the scratch on the non-shaven face. But so before we get into maybe some of the questions that we've talked about, we both haven't been at our companies long, so maybe we'll just tell you just for a second about getting started. And we were having a discussion in the back room about how to go from like product-led growth to sales and getting those two machines to work together. Because I'm guessing, without a show of hands, you have probably worked in an environment where either sales and marketing did not get along or sales and product did not get along. And so trying to get all three of those together can be difficult. And generally, I think our consensus is that it's a lot easier to add selling once you've got a foundation of product-led growth, and that's been ClickUp's story. So ClickUp is 5 years old, and we really attacked the market first through a product-led growth motion. We invested in sales about 2 to 3 years into our growth model, but it was more of a reactive sales, help people buy, more of a customer success-minded sell. And then over the past 2 years, so the last 2 of our 5 years, we've been much more focused on hiring and developing and training great sellers. And so in that process, I was going to give you an acronym just that I've thought a lot about since I've joined, that may be a helpful way to kind of put it all together, which is the acronym VOO. So any personal finance nerds in the room? There's one. So VOO is the stock ticker for an ETF that follows the Vanguard 500. I'm a big fan of J.L. Collins, The Simple Path to Wealth. A couple people smiling. But VOO would be, first thing would be vocab. I would say it's really important that you make sure you've got the right vocabulary. For example, whenever I started, we had very different vocabularies between what sales assisted meant versus what self-service meant. And that just created all sorts of friction between our growth and sales orgs getting together. So I'd be very careful about aligning on a core set of vocabulary. The second one is ownership. And I would say I'd be very thoughtful of making sure you define who owns what and getting clear about expectations. And then the third one, as you start thinking about reps, is I would say you got to be thinking about other ways to pipeline. And most reps think about outbounding. You know, if you think about sellers, they kind of think about outreach and leads. The modern seller has to think about things very, very differently. So vocab, ownership, and other ways to generate pipeline are the things I'd be thinking about. All right, So anyways, that was my
that's-
prepared remarks. I wanted
it's
to give you the VOO.
Well, you're going to be the first question, so that kicks us off perfectly. With VOO, or with layering in sales and product-led growth, can you just share with us a couple of where do companies get stuck? Or what are some obstacles that if you don't set it up right, it's going to hurt?
Yeah. I think that the first thing is really trying to figure out what do you want your sales team focused on, right? So like most companies, they eventually segment their go-to-market either through the lens of the size of companies that they're selling to, the geography of where those people are selling to, or maybe the verticals that they sell to. We have a model that's geo-based, territory-based, and then focused in on the number of employees at a potential customer. We really want our sales calories to be spent on the biggest potential NDR segments, the biggest NDR or GRR accounts. And so, we want to rotate them towards the harder thing. Like my view of selling is pretty straightforward. Salespeople are either going to do whatever is easiest or whatever makes them the most money. And usually they will do whatever is easiest first, and then eventually they'll get to what makes them the most money. So you've got to make it to where incentives get really, really, really aligned. So in our upmarket segments, for example, we pay our sellers regardless of how somebody buys. So they could buy through in-app, they could buy through a partner, they could buy through a seller, they could buy annual, they could buy monthly. The seller has a full quota, they own those accounts. We want them living in those accounts and growing them strategically. Down market, our sales capacity model is very different. It's mainly focused on if somebody puts up their hand and wants help with our product, that's where we're going to put it in place. But we had all sorts of issues where we were overstaffed big time with our down market sellers, and there wasn't enough leads or workspaces that want to engage with selling. And then you get this real tense model where the sellers want more conversations, more meetings. They start trying to harvest people that just want to try and buy on their own, and then later get more strategic. So it really is an important discussion on aligning capacity to the segments that you want and making sure that you integrate those two. That would be my big thing. What would you say, Stevie?
Yeah, it's interesting. So Vanta operates in a very different segment. So our core customer today is typically a small, medium business, and often they are tackling compliance for the very first time. Now, Vanta is unique in that our founder created a market for automated compliance. This is a space where our customers before were solving this problem with spreadsheets, with expensive engagements with consultants, with auditors, and often sort of stumbling through processes that are very unfamiliar. And they were solving those things manually. So because we are introducing them to a new technology that isn't really replacing something that they're familiar with today, even those small businesses need a lot of hand-holding. So we take a very customer-centric approach, and there's a lot of education involved. So even in that down market segment, we're high velocity, but we're also high touch. So Vanta, we're a Series B company. We're still at early stages. We're still in that growth mode. So our SMB team is really incentivized to help that customer get successful quickly. But to your point, we don't have PLG today, though we've experimented with it, and I think we'll go that way in time. A lot of our focus at this point is actually more on how do we help those folks get successful fast. So in the space of security and compliance, working with MSPs, working with trusted partners is one way to do that. So what we're now exploring is a model that bifurcates into folks who want to do this themselves, be very hands-on, have been through compliance before, have built a security program and can do that with little help. And then a funnel for folks who really do want hand-holding and want it to be made much, much easier. So we're starting to create a split there. We're also at the interesting point of really looking to create that upmarket momentum. So historical customers are small. At the same time, we're looking to build an enterprise motion. And I think that can be a really gnarly one. I'm excited to talk a little bit about what that looks like, how you put an enterprise motion on top of an SMB business, how you introduce PLG into the middle of that. It can be very complex. And I think, honestly, the biggest mistake people make is by thinking it's just a one and done. You just put a PLG motion on your business and suddenly people just show up and buy. It's very easy to go wrong, and you can go wrong in a lot of ways that are very dependent on your customer type and your business. So you got to really think with nuance. You got to put together something that makes sense given your technology and the problems you're solving for your customers.
That's right.
I was going to ask you, Stevie, back as you think about PLG and as you think about standing it up, is there one or two signals that you'd be looking for, or as you're talking with your team, how will you know when to say, let's try it, let's turn it on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer that like we're in software, right? You should iterate, you should test, you need to look for the right signals. And one of the things that we did at Vanta to start to dip our toe in the water was to run a free trial. And we were very bullish on the idea of a free trial at Vanta. It's, we're selling to smaller companies, often founders, they're very technical, they're very bright, they can figure it out. And it was really interesting that we found that if we ran a free trial with no sales assist, with no human involved, it actually generated quite a lot of junk and noise. It was not a productive way for us to engage our customers. But when we run a free trial that has check-in calls and a little bit of technical handholding, our win rate on those free trials skyrocketed. And we actually saw a doubling of our win rate, particularly in competitive deals, on a free trial that involved just a little bit of assistance. And for us, what we learned is our customers want a little bit of education, a little bit of handholding, and even if there's great onboarding material, that's not enough. So for us, that dipping the toe in allowed us to figure out what worked best. And it actually caused us to rethink and redirect a lot of energy into automating self-serve on the back end. So automating onboarding, automating expansion opportunities, and really de-emphasizing anything that is pre-sale that doesn't involve some kind of human touch and education. So I think you really got to experiment. You got to lean into iteration and not just blindly think you're going to introduce a way to buy now on the website and then it's instantly going to work.
Yeah, I would agree with that. What I would also reference is that it's important to have this very iterative mindset with your product specifically. With your sales team, I think you just really want to index them towards the customer and the outcomes that the customer is wanting to drive. There's this risk of over pivoting your sales and marketing resources towards so many different motions, whether that's sales-led, product-led, trial versus land and expand. And you can just change the goalposts so frequently, you never get consistency. So I'm a big fan of trying to keep things as consistent as possible in the go-to-market, but in the product then to figure out how do you do those fast experiments. And like Stevie said, sometimes that's through Pindo, sometimes that's through email communication, sometimes that's through, human-to-human touch, but figuring out ways to amplify that way.
It's really interesting. So we're kind of getting everyone revved up with the idea of let's go launch our product-led growth. Let's do PLG. There's quite a few account executives and sellers out here also. Is it natural for a salesperson to be a little skeptical or afraid? And when you've seen it be successful, is there a incentive structure, or you talked about messaging? Like, how can you make sure that the salespeople feel comfortable and that they're all aligned as well?
Yeah, I think fairly straightforward. Like, if you want to build a truly great enterprise business that unlocks enterprise multiples, at some point, you're going to have expensive sales reps. Like basically every company that does more than, there's 4 cloud companies that have done $5 billion in ARR. Square or Block, whichever you want to call it, Workday, Salesforce, and ServiceNow. There's only 4 companies that have ever done $5 billion in ARR that are like pure B2B SaaS. There's 28 companies that have made their way above $1 billion in ARR. And of those 28, 17 of those 28 have very big and respected sales teams. Now, a good portion of those started as PLG and then got there. So I think, as you get through the 10 million threshold, the 20 million ARR threshold, the back of your mind should be, how do we build a culture that we can have great sellers come a part of? And great sellers want to work with great technology that drives great outcomes, where sellers can make a lot of money, or where there's a lot of sellers that hit their plan. Like, those are what sellers are looking for you to be a destination for great salespeople. So what you need to do then as a business is help those sellers through development programs, through enablement, through inspiration, through partnerships, through goaling. Help them think more like a marketer. Help them think more like a growth practitioner. If your sellers are just thinking that I need leads, I need customers, this is what I'm going to do, if they think that they need to be involved in every single buying experience, they're going to be in trouble, right? Because generally speaking, you've got like 3 major points of leverage in a sales process. You've got showing the technology, you've got access to trialing the technology, and then you've got the pricing conversation. And with PLG, pretty much all 3 of those you can erode away. So your sales team loses a lot of leverage if you're not careful. So that's why you got to get your sellers to view it as, hey, this is an asset where I can get dozens of workspaces in these target accounts and then leverage all of that to go have a C-level conversation about some transformational outcome we can drive. So you got to get your sellers really thinking about things differently, in my opinion.
I love this because, so I did 6 years at Twilio. Twilio was a PLG business, right? So the first $200 million in revenue at Twilio was pre-IPO, all PLG. There really was not a sales team at that point. It was a great product, and people just built. They came to the website, they put in a credit card, and they built. So I joined right around that 200 million in ARR mark, and that was at the very early stages of Twilio seeking to build a sales team on top of this PLG machine. And there was this interesting culture clash, and you touched on this a little bit, of we had a very product-centric company that really believed, down to the founder, the CEO, that the product sold itself. And you really didn't need sales, because if you made a great product, it just sold through the website. And as enterprise sellers like myself came in, there was an interesting cultural thing that happened where the enterprise sellers, some of us came in and were ready to go and like figure out creatively how you build those C-level conversations on top of a PLG machine, and you could get all of that bottoms-up momentum and build activity through that PLG motion and then turn that into something packaged up for a C-level buyer. But there was a cohort of enterprise folks who came in who really viewed PLG as a threat in a lot of ways and saw it as, if there's a website where anyone can create an account, sign up, and have access to everything, I have no power, I have no leverage, I can't gate anything, it becomes very hard for me to sell. And what it really takes is creativity to start to think about selling differently. And what that can look like is using that PLG motion to create energy, excitement, build, and become an educator and an enabler for those developers or others who might use your product, but then be able to articulate to a C-level buyer or somebody up the stack in that organization what kind of transformation that could drive. And we had a lot of interesting ways to do that at Twilio. One of my favorite was enterprise hackathons. We would actually bring a hackathon event into an enterprise and engage all of their developers in a one-day event, awesome. And we would have the C-level come be judges. And so in that day, these developers would use the PLG product to build great stuff. And at the end of the day, the executives would judge and they would see, oh my gosh, in one day, my team built these things we've been talking about for 5 years. And then suddenly you had a very different conversation. You could package things up. You could sell a large multi-million-dollar deal, even though it was all there on the website for pennies per API call. So you really got to get thinking differently about how you put the two things together, because they really are not a threat to each other. They have to go together.
That's such a great point. I know we want to talk about partners in AI, but what she just referenced about Twilio, putting on a hackathon at a customer's environment, that goes back to what I was saying about vocabulary, ownership, and then other ways to generate pipeline. That is so non-traditional, and that is a seller thinking like a marketer, right? That's exactly what you want. AI is another big way that we were talking. We've got some experiments on helping our sales team get more productive in new ways to prospect by using generative AI. She's got an internal, I think, hackathon team going. We just incorporated it into our product. So there's a number of things we could go down there, but do we want to go there or partners?
Let's do it. We can do 5 minutes on, to kind of get everyone's attention. Generative AI, ChatGPT, OpenAI, Anthropic. It's all in the news. It's going fast. So how are you thinking?
Tell them about your team.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So I'm really bullish on this. I think, look, like PLG, it's easy to do this wrong. And, generative AI is not a SaaS app you can just drop into your team and think, oh, it's going to suddenly solve everything and write the great content and help us generate leads. Like, you have to get creative and think about how it fits in your ecosystem. But I am extremely bullish on the potential here. And I think there's There's a mentality that came out of the last decade of extreme growth, this growth at all cost mindset that was just add bodies, add capacity, just keep adding humans, and those humans will sell more because the spreadsheet math works. We are very much not in that world anymore. And as we go forward and think about how you do things with more leverage, how you get more creative, I'm very bullish on AI to drive innovation, not just in the product, but inside revenue operations. So I'm actually building a team inside my RevOps team that's going to own AI and innovation, going to help us build really new, interesting use cases because, and I'm sure all the sellers in the room will relate to this, and it's true for us. We have all the best tools that exist. We've got a great tech stack. It's not well integrated. It's not well tied together. We're not using all the smart features. There is a massive opportunity for a small product and engineering like team in RevOps to drive a truly unique, differentiated experience that will be better for your customers and will make your sellers more efficient and will make them more productive. So rather than hiring more bodies, if we can create great customer experience through AI in RevOps, that's something I'm ready to double down on.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, and something that we're going to try and carbon copy and paste at our environment. For us, we're still early days. Like, I think what you said really resonated with me. We have a lot of systems that aren't well connected. So then just like adding AI and assuming that it's going to help productivity is going to be a little bit difficult. What we are mainly focused on for the reps is really looking at where they're spending a lot of time, whether it's our salespeople, our SEs, or our customer success teams. And a lot of times it's with their big accounts, their big demos, their big calls, and like the research that they're doing beforehand. And we're mainly just trying to get our teams better at figuring out how to use prompts. So, we're doing a lot of things like, hey, I've got a meeting with JP Morgan Chase. Pull to me any open job descriptions that have the title project management or any keyword related to, OKRs and KPIs, whatever, and using that as a way to like research and figure out, is there any cross-functional project management use cases that may be a good time for us to reference as we go in? So we're thinking about that, just looking for things that our peeps are doing manual and figuring out ways to automate it. We did create a field advisory board of like our top ICs in the go-to-market, and we put that to them as a challenge as like, what are the ways that we could better use and integrate AI across our sales team?
I love how you both are so thoughtful about the sales team and getting their buy-in and starting to kind of create that motion. So we're going to switch gears to the final topic, which is all things channel and kind of this third tertiary segment. So how are you thinking about channel? What's a good lens or a success metric to even apply?
Yeah, basically just real briefly, like what we were trying to talk about is a really great go-to-market of the future has product-led growth, has great sellers, and has a clear partner strategy. And in my opinion, there's really not a great company that can say they've done all three of those things really well. Like my last company, Zscaler, we had a great partner network, we had great sales, we had zero strategy when it came to PLG. You can look at like MongoDB and say, man, they've got a great sales team, they've got great PLG. Partners isn't really driving the revenue machine there. You can look at HubSpot and say, hey, PLG and partners is very obvious there, but their sales team may not be the same. And that's just like generalizing. It's very hard to do all three. So when it comes to partners, what's been our approach has been, because we don't play in a space that is naturally conditioned to buying through partners, which I think Stevie's company does, the security space, we've looked for markets that are naturally conditioned to buying through partners. So like in Latin America, we have a partner first model. We still have sellers that can help, but basically we don't let a seller sell a direct deal in Latin America. They have to sell through a partner. That then allows our partners to be the services arms, which we get better gross margin. We're doing a number of other things about services related and trying to activate more revenue from partners. The area that I would say, though, from a partnership perspective that I think is really interesting is if you look at it through the customer's lens, customers want real like locality still a lot of the times. Secondly, customers are more interested, I think, generally speaking, in technical integrations than like resale partners. Back to my previous experience at Zscaler, we sold every deal through the channel. But you know who our number one partner was globally? Not a reseller. It was CrowdStrike. And CrowdStrike brought us more business than any other partner, CDW and SHI, whatever, because we had an aligned go-to-market because customers wanted to use these two technologies in a complementary way. So I would think about that. And then obviously whenever you start really doing enterprise, SIs and outsourcers become a whole other ball game. But really, really hard. We're at the early innings of it and about 7 months into our journey.
That's exciting. I mean, this is really, we're also at the early innings, but we are very bullish because of the space Vanta operates in. We're in security compliance. This is a market where customers are already typically working with a managed service provider, an MSP, to help build their compliance and their security programs. So for us, there is a really exciting motion here to build both a direct sales organization out of Vanta as well as a really strong channel motion as well. So we just launched our MSP program a couple of months ago. We are extremely excited about it and it's showing great results, early days, got aggressive goals for the year. And a couple of the things that I think are making it really work well. One is that our product is a natural fit with what these MSPs already are offering to their customers and clients. So we work with MSPs who may have anywhere from 2 to 2,000 clients that they can bring Vanta to help run their security and compliance programs. So they are able to take our software and seed it with their existing client base very quickly. So we're seeing some economies of scale there. The other thing we've done that's made it work really well is that we've created comp neutrality for the direct team. We talked a bit about how important this is. You know, you don't want to create conflict for your team where you've got sellers who are out there selling direct, and you know what commonly will happen is sellers having a great conversation, prospect loves the product, wants to use it, and then they learn, oh, well, my MSP is actually in your partner network. I'd love to just buy through them. I already work with them. I trust them. You don't want your direct seller to then say, no, because then I don't get credit for that. I don't retire quota. So creating that neutrality so we can do what's best for the customer. We can close them direct. They can go with a partner. It's a win-win for everybody. And truly, there's a lot of upside for us if our customers close via those channels, because in their experience, they're going to get more hands-on support. They're going to have that years-long services relationship, and it's going to be a much richer and stickier engagement rather than just buying software and us helping them implement. So we're very bullish. Part of that is the vertical that we live in security compliance, but I think there's a natural partnership here, and we're going to be doubling down on direct and that channel motion. And then for us, PLG is sort of that, we'll do it, but our focus is much more on post-sales PLG and expansion versus pre-sale.
Yeah, great conversation. We're going to just open it up. There's a couple questions.
Actually, we've kind of run out of time for questions. Unfortunately, there's two waiting for you. I will share them with you. Perhaps you can share them on the social networks. But thank you so much for a great talk.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All. Yeah, we'll be around.
Okay. Thanks.